Welcome into the DNVR Avalanche Podcast. We've got Big E and Rudo coming to you live. It's a Thursday, right? Yeah, it's a Thursday. We'll be joined by Erik Johnson shortly here. Should be a fun conversation with him. And then AJ will hop on after that. So it should be a good day. E, you were there when the big trade for EJ happened. You were part of it.
Oh, yeah.
At the time, why EJ? Why was he the target?
You know, it's funny, like, because when you're doing your research, right, it's on how to make your team better, right? And at that time for us, we were the youngest team in the league, right? We were at the floor. You're talking about after Avalanche 1.0, right? And then it was tough, and it was thin, and you got to strip it down. You know, we just didn't want to try to drag it. They had done that for a couple of years, you know what I mean? With, for example, like Ryan Smith and, you know, Scotty Hannons and, you know what I mean? Like, not that those guys were bad players. I'm saying they just didn't get to, you know, winning the whole thing. And the expectations were always to win the whole thing. And then, so it goes down to that level of stuff. All of a sudden you're like, what do we do? You know, so that we had made the decision, we're just going to go with young guys. And if you remember, it was the Duchesne and O'Reilly and, you know, all that kind of stuff, right? You know, that all of a sudden we were like, let's play the young guys, you know what I mean? And now you look around and you're like, okay, what can you do? And then, so we just decided to mix it up a little bit. We felt that, you know, EJ, for example, was a target, you know, that we went and got. And, you know, that trade, all of a sudden there's the 11th overall pick involved in there too, right? There's Jay McClement. There's obviously Chris Stewart. You know, it was kind of like a little bit of a mixed bag of things. And you got to remember, so there was Shattenkirk, you know, that you know, we weren't trying to get, you know, we weren't trying to move Shattenkirk, you know, and then all of a sudden it just kind of evolves into that. And the reason why you're saying you're moving Shattenkirk is because, well, okay, at first you don't want to, but then you're looking and there's like, you know, a guy that just retired, Tyson Barrie. There's Stephen Elliott at the time. We had a bunch of guys, you know what I mean, that, you know, there were righties and there were kind of like the same type of as Shattenkirk, but EJ was different. EJ is, you know, he's the big fella, right? He's the number one overall pick that, you know, obviously came from St. Louis, but, you know, maybe he didn't reach his potential, you know what I mean, at that point in St. Louis, and it was time for a change, or they felt it was time for a change, and next thing you know, you go and get him, and you know, he comes in, and we were straightforward with him, like, go be yourself. You know, we don't care. Like, you were first overall, second overall, third overall. We needed a right shot guy. Kind of used him as a point, PP guy a little bit at the start. And I remember Joe was part of the management team, you know, with that too. And then, you know, and Joe Sakic, and then, you know, it kind of evolved more into that big shutdown, like, you know what I mean, 20-something minutes a night, and, you know what I mean, that can do it all, and PP and big minutes. And certainly it was an unbelievable asset, obviously, to have.
Yeah. Appreciate you. You heard us talking there a little bit. Can you just talk a little bit about your side of that trade, which is, what's it, 14 years ago now? Jesus, that's so long ago.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on, Big E. Good to see you, man. Rudolph, good to see you too. And I remember kind of having a gut feeling that something could have maybe happened. I wasn't super for sure that something is going to go down, but you kind of have that inkling in the back of your head that something could happen. But nonetheless, it was still a huge surprise because we had just played in Buffalo that night, February 2011, and we had just landed in St. Louis super late. And I remember landing, and our team services person grabbed me when I got off the plane, me and J-Mac, and said, "Hey, Doug Armstrong wants to talk to you." And I was like, "Whoa, what did we do wrong, or what's going on here?" And J-Mac's like, "We got traded 100%. And then he talked to us and just said, "We're going to Colorado tomorrow." And I remember talking to Sherm on the runway there. And then the next morning, waking up at 5 a.m. to catch a flight to San Jose. And Big E was one of the first people I met standing outside the hotel there at the Valencia, and Joe Sacco. And just remember it being a huge whirlwind and being really upset, actually, because I really liked playing in St. Louis and I was devastated. I thought I was going to be there my whole career, and then, flipped the script, and it ended up being the greatest thing ever to ever happen to me, going to Colorado, and the rest is history. And a lot of the equipment guys still say it was the worst trade in Avs history. They like to bust my balls about that. All the equipment guys, because they have to deal with me every day now. And no, it ended up being awesome, and it being a good trade for both teams. None of the guys that went the other way to St. Louis ended up winning the cup in St. Louis, but they were a big part of the team there. And then obviously everyone knows how well it worked out for us in Colorado.
Yeah. Obviously it was kind of a long journey in Colorado from starting with Sacco in your first years, as you mentioned. There were some down years, there were some up years, and then ultimately the rise to the cup. You'd always been a core part of that locker room. And can you just talk a little bit about how that culture developed in Colorado?
Yeah, it wasn't always easy to start. We didn't have a great team. I remember sitting in the lounge in St. Louis looking at the standings and seeing that Colorado had lost 11 in a row, and a bunch of us looking at each other. Wow, would it suck to be in Denver right now? And then 2 weeks later, I was there, had to be part of the solution. And it was tough because we had built, a pretty good team in St. Louis that was knocking on the door to being a playoff team. And then, getting to Colorado, we had to do the same thing all over again. But, you just got to attack those things head on. I was really honored that Colorado believed in me and saw me as a big part of their future. And I remember talking to Erik on the plane one day, and I was like, "Where should I live? Should I rent a place?" And he's like, "Buddy, you're going to be here for 15 years. Go buy a house." And I always remember, thinking, "Wow, I just got traded. I could get traded again any minute." And they believed in me to be here for a long time. But it wasn't always easy. It was, we had a couple tough years after that, and then we got McKinnon, and then we made the playoffs in 13-14, and then we missed the playoffs for 3 years. So it wasn't always like this great ascension to the top. You know what I mean? We had to grind and find ourselves for a few years, but that's what makes you better. That's what that adversity teaches you things, and it makes you appreciate how, when things do go well, how much you have to appreciate them, because we were down in the dumps for a few years there, and we had to get ourselves out, and it was up to us to do it. And eventually we did do it. And it just made it that much sweeter to go through that roller coaster of the ups and downs, and to get to the top was ultimately worth all the downs, for sure.
And that's what I wanted to tell our audience there. It's so funny because I talk about recipes and I talk about ingredients, and obviously Avalanche 1.0 was awesome. We own Joe and Peter and Patty and those guys. They had a decade of hockey that was unbelievable. Then you hit that dip, right? And it's like expectations to win it all, and we felt, like I never told you that, but we felt that, okay, we got to strip it down, which we did, and then it's like, we need the right ingredients. We felt we didn't have the right ingredients. And hence your trade, right? And that's kind of where it was. And we were like, we need that big fella on the back end, a right shot. And I remember Joe was just starting in management at that time, and he was adamant about a right shot, right? We need a right shot. We need a big right shot. And it's funny because, Tyson just retired, Barry. And, I was telling Rudo off air, like, we had Tyson coming up, and we had Stefan Elliott coming up, right? Guys that were a little bit smaller. So you were able to, we were able to spare Kevin Shattenkirk, for example. So when a trade like that occurs, you're not saying, oh, they're not, the St. Louis Blues aren't saying we're trading Erik Johnson, and we're not saying we're trading Kevin Shattenkirk. You know, it just kind of evolves into that. You know what I mean? And the beauty of it is we were convinced that you were going to be there for 15 years. You know what I mean? And it was like, it's funny because it worked out that way. And, you know, but at that time you look at it and then you take your licks a little bit because why are they doing this? Why are they doing that? And then obviously, you know, we're trying to get the right mix, the right culture. So for you, you lived it. I was gone. You lived it after a few thin years. The culture is so important and you're a big part of it. And tell us, like, how big is it an ingredient in the culture as the recipe to win the Stanley Cup?
Yeah, I think that word gets thrown out a lot, culture and accountability and all that. But, you know, the quote is on good teams, the coaches lead, on great teams, the players lead. And your coach can set the framework to what your culture is, but the players have to drive the bus and steer the ship. So it takes time, though. I mean, you have to identify, you know, what your culture is, and every team has a different one. You know, some teams operate on different levels. The Avs, you know, we would probably be seen as more of a serious team. Teams around the league maybe aren't as serious and have a different type of culture, but it all starts with the players. And I think we had a great makeup of guys that really built our culture into something special. And then, you know, we had guys that were in support roles that made our culture special too. But the coaches and management set the framework, and the players have to go out and execute and keep the culture going. And it's not always easy, and there's ups and downs and trials and tribulations, but you need everybody. And it couldn't always be Gabe. It couldn't always be Nate, or it couldn't always be me. It had to be other guys too. And it was special to be able to grow that and be a part of it. And, you know, we had so many different guys that could be leaders. And, you know, I'm grateful for how it all worked out, because, you know, if we don't win that cup, you know, we're seen as, you know, kind of a little bit of a letdown, right? And, you know, once you win one, the expectations are definitely raised, and they want you to win another one, and we wanted to win another one, and, you know, the Avs still could win another one. So it's a great group of guys and a team that is built for success for a long time, and thankfully we accomplished our ultimate goal, and I'm so grateful that I was still able to be around for that.
I'm going to ask you the hard question here. McKinnon or Makar? You're starting a team. Who's your first overall pick?
I always say you should take the center. I think, you know, if you're a team with the top pick, I would always take the forward. I think forwards get more seats in the butt, and, you know, I was the top pick, and you know, it's not always easy to build around a defenseman. I think if it was me, I would take the forward.
All right, McKinnon. Put one in the W column for McKinnon on that one. Also looked like he had a pretty...
Couldn't go wrong either way.
No doubt on that front. Slip your name in there up near the top as well. Look, obviously, I imagine your favorite moment is winning the Stanley Cup, but is there any other moments that kind of stick out as memorable for your time?
Probably coming back when I had left Colorado and came back for my first game. That was one of the coolest moments of my life. Just the reception and ovation I got that night. I couldn't believe how loud it was, and just everyone was chanting my name. And that's just why I feel such a strong connection to Denver. Is I love playing here so much, and I can tell, you know, the fans really loved having me play here. So that makes it feel a lot like home, and makes me want to retire here. I'm going to retire here. I'm not getting rid of my house. I'm always going to be a Coloradan and stay in Denver. So just coming back, that first game was unbelievable, and then coming back at the trade deadline was also awesome. And those are two that really stick out, just because they were so unexpected, and I didn't know what it was going to be like, and it ended up being just unbelievable. And some other favorite memories probably would be being named to that. I think was it the quarter century team for the Avs. That was super special, just with all the great players that have played here over the years, and to be on one of those teams just meant really so much to me. And yeah, it was just an amazing honor, and super grateful to just have been here for as long as I have been.
If in a short sentence, like if you're telling yourself, like your young self, like, you know what I mean, back when you were 18, 19, any advice you would give yourself today, seeing all those young guys coming in the league now, you've been around for so long, what would the advice be to yourself coming in?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the biggest thing is it doesn't matter what other people think. I think I would just get so wrapped up in a mistake and, you know, the coach is mad or you let your teammates down. I would just say don't sweat the small stuff. You can't control what happened in the past, and you can't control what's going to happen in the future. Just stay in the moment and be present, and do the best in the moment, and do the best you can in the moment right now, and just don't sweat the small stuff. And those would be the biggest things. Just, it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. It just matters about going and giving your best effort and not worrying about the mistake that you just made, just having your next best shift, your next best game, and don't worry about that stuff.
A couple more questions for you here. Our co-caster AJ wants to know why fans should have hope that the Avs can win another Stanley Cup.
Well, probably just because of your question, right? Who would you rather have, McKinnon or Makar? You start right there, and I think your window's wide, right? And then you have Landy, who's healthy and a lot of depth, and probably the most solidified goalie position we've had since we won the Cup. So especially going into the season, right? And I like the D. I like the depth up front, and you know, we get by Dallas last year, and I think we're for sure going to the conference final. I just and then you never know what can happen, right? So window's open for a while, and I think fans should be optimistic and excited. I know it's difficult not to win every year, but it's really hard to win it all. And I know the guys are hungry and driven to win. And Bedsy said a quote, "It's hard to be hungry when you're already full." And I don't think any of the guys are full at all. So they're still hungry for more. And it'll be an exciting run for the next, you know, probably 4, 5, 6, 7 years.
We know Landeskog. We know McKinnon. Do you have any new horses named after teammates?
No, not right now. We have a horse named Captain Gabe, but he's on the sidelines right now. So maybe when he gets healthy, he'll be something decent. But yeah, it was a good run of horses named after my teammates, but nothing in the works. But one on the sidelines that's coming back, hopefully.
Captain Gabe appropriate for that.
Yeah.
Don't name him Rudo, then we're gonna be fine. You know what I mean? So
if you want a last place horse, name it Rudo for sure.
Yeah. Slow,
yep.
Heavy feet.
Yes.
Hey, I'm gonna tell you, I didn't have a chance to tell you. I did listen. Max was listening to it because he thought it was the coolest thing in the world to wear the Avs jersey the other night. Then he was listening to the broadcast and he's like, "EJ's good, man. EJ's good." So, but here's what I'm going to tell you: keep playing as long as you can. Keep playing until they kick you out of the league, and then you can deal with that stuff afterwards. So keep playing. You did a good job, and thanks for not talking about Joe and I's Goo's mishaps about, you know, line matching Rick Barry against Troy Terry. You know what I mean? It didn't look good, you know what I mean, a couple times, and it was nice of you to just take it easy on us.
No problem. And I know you don't dye your hair like Joe Big E, so I wasn't going to give you crap for that.
No, I just cut it. No dyeing, no dyeing.
There you go. Dodge the bullet. EJ, yeah, I know you got to get out of here.
No, you're good. You're good. I definitely want to keep playing and staying ready. So hopefully something pops up. But if not, grateful for all the time I have playing the NHL and grateful for all my time with the Avs. And if it's done, you know, I always try and tell myself, if you were offered this as a 6-year-old kid, would you take it? And I say every day of the week. So super grateful if this is the end of the road, but if it's not, definitely want to still keep playing. And if not, we'll see what happens. I'll still be around Colorado, and we'll see what happens, but definitely grateful for the career I've had if this is the end of the road.
Either way, hopefully we see you in a jersey this year. I'm looking forward to it. If you want to shout out anything, if you want to tell people where they can find you, if you want to watch some funny videos from McKinnon's wedding or something, you can share whatever you want.
Yep. No, just keep following along on Instagram. I might surprise you every once in a while, and maybe I'll chase you with a lobster or something. We'll see.
I love it.
Perfect. All right, we'll let you go. Thank you for coming on again, EJ. We appreciate you a ton.
Thanks, boys.
Erik Johnson, obviously, all-time Av, definitely needs to be in the Avs Ring of Honor or whatever you want to call it up there. Bring AJ back in when he jumps on. Look, when you talk about someone like EJ, obviously, actually, I'm curious about this because I do think the Avs have obviously grown their fandom significantly over this run of playoffs, right? Especially the Cup run, the last handful of years, we've seen the fan base grow quite a bit. Is EJ praised enough? Obviously, everyone loves him in Colorado, but do newer fans realize he was a number 1D here?
Yeah, and this is where I can jump in a little bit because I was my time, right? I was right knee deep into, obviously management with the Avs, and here's what I'm going to say. That's why I asked him that question. What would you tell yourself, right, if you were a young EJ coming into the league? And this is where I'm most proud of him is, he was able to. He was so worried. The expectations are big. Your first overall pick, and he was so worried about everything in his play, and because he's a good person, right? And he's a good athlete, and he's meticulous about his game, and he always worried about what coaches think, but what fans are going to think, and all that kind of stuff. So he came in, and I loved his answer because that's the truth. He came in, and it's easier said than done to say that you're able to just brush off things and concentrate on the task at hand and not worry about the sweating the small stuff, right? And that's where he got excellent at. And he got really good at it. And then he became, for me, again, I was gone, and you guys will remember that season. If he doesn't get hurt, he's on the ballot for, a Norris Trophy season in my book. I'm biased because I have a soft spot for him because I'm so proud of what he's done. But I do believe that year, if he doesn't get hurt, I'm not saying he wins it, but he's on the ballot of the top 3, right? You know what I mean? And I was so proud that he turned his career into that, and he was a important piece of a hockey team, an important piece of a hockey team that won the Stanley Cup. And just those years before that, just remember his TV interviews a few times and everything, a big part of the culture and what made it to be a championship culture.
AJ,
True.
You were in that locker room for that season, and then you were in the locker room for the come up as well. How much from a reporter side of things? How much was EJ the core of that locker room?
I think Gabe is always going to be the guy that we look to as like the heart of it, right? But
sure.
He's like the guy that kind of brings it all together. But when you're talking about a selfless approach and just approached every day with a lot of humility and grace, I think Erik Johnson is a wonderful example of exactly what an organization wants out of its players, wants out of its people to represent them, to wear the crest on the front. And I think that was always something that I appreciated greatly about him. And like just from a media perspective, very few guys were as easy to talk to, were as approachable. I tried not to bother him too much, but he was such an easy guy to talk to that he was always one of my like go-tos. And so polite, so respectful. One of the only guys that will ever, when he's answering a question from you, will look at you and then address you by name. And then that's why when he would do interviews, you'd always hear him like saying random people's names because he was always talking to the person asking him the question. And it really it's such a rare thing, and it was so early in my career that I didn't even know like that he was such a special person that now with time and some perspective, I'm like, I really was very fortunate to get to spend that time around him and get to talk with him. And uh, he was always such a good dude, and definitely one of the heartbeats of that locker room, and one of the guys that you were happiest for when they did get over the hump. Everything that happened in St. Louis and how hurt he was, and rebuilding his career, uh, and then accepting, like, he loses that number 1D position. He accepts that slow demotion and responsibility over time as Cale Makar happened. And there was never like oh, I'm Erik Johnson. Like, there were other guys in the league that, as they aged, refused to accept a lesser role, and it became a problem for them. Erik Johnson just wasn't one of those guys. Very, very cool to just sit back, understand who he was, understand the team, focus on winning first, and just the consummate teammate.
Yep.
You win with good people, right? You do. You win with good people, and it's the right mixture, like you said, that you need in your leadership group. And he certainly had his own way of doing things, and that's the beauty of Erik. He never tried to be something he wasn't. He was just being himself. You know what I mean? So that's the part I remember about him, and very respectful, respectful to the game, respectful to the media, respectful to and forget about hockey. How many games did he play? I mean, is he at 1,000? He's over. Oh, well, I got some injuries, but is he over 1,000?
1,023.
Oh yeah. That's right. He went when Gabe was there. Yeah. But anyway, he just and it's right. He just wanted to be here because he knew that they could win, and for me, that's always going to follow him. And he's hopefully he keeps playing and keep playing until they kick you out of the league. That's what I tell people all the time. Keep playing until they kick you out.
Two of my just real quick, two really quick stories that I loved about that always kind of personified Erik Johnson as a just like a guy to be around from the media side. When a preseason game, Connor Timmins plays in this game, and we go in there after, and let me tell you guys, it is so hard to try and find a storyline when you're in like the 4th or 5th preseason game, and you're just like, what are we doing here? Yeah. You're like, most of this roster is set, right? I go over to talk to EJ, and EJ looks at me and he says, AJ, I'm good. The guy that you need to talk to is right next to me, and that was Connor Timmins' locker. That was his stall for that day, and that always really stuck with me. That, like, hey, this is his time. This is like, focus on him. You guys you have 82 regular season games to come bother me. Leave me alone. Talk this kid up. And he was always like, this guy was great. He was always so willing to help out and to try and put some focus on the other guys around him and give them love. The other one, there was do you guys remember the Avs were the first team to get burned on the double challenge fail?
Yeah.
Back when they
Bednar didn't even understand that it was a double minor. Yeah.
Right. Bednar didn't know, and the failed challenge was because Roddick Fox's stick broke in the middle of him shooting.
It was clearly played with a broken stick. Yeah.
Right. And the Avs lose that challenge. Roddick Fox gets the goal. Dallas wins that game, I think, like 3-2. It was always a nightmare in Dallas. Things haven't changed. And after the game, I go to talk to EJ, and he goes, AJ, I don't know the rules anymore. I can't wait to get another letter from the NHL explaining how we got this wrong, though, because that was not long after they had the NHL had
St.
sent
Louis
that letter to the
offside.
Avs,
Yeah.
after the Blues game, where they had challenged for offside, and they had gotten it incorrect, and the Avs lost the game in part because of that. I think it was a game-tying goal got wiped off the board, and the Avs lose that game. And they had sent the Avs that letter, and EJ was like, I don't care. If they send us a letter, throw it in the trash. He's like, I don't care about that. He played it with a broken stick. That's against the rules. What are we even doing here? They get different rules. I don't care about any of this. And I was just like, I love this guy. This is It was just like a good, and it was such a classic EJ. Like he's pissed, but it's in a still respectful enough way to be like, I know what's going on here. We got screwed, and that's that. And I was like, cool, man. We need so much more of this in society in general. Somebody that'll be honest about what's going on and won't sugarcoat the nonsense, but will also be like, yeah, like this sucks.
It happened. It sucks. Move forward. Yep.
Two stories that always stick out in my brain about covering Erik Johnson.
Love both of them. Love EJ. Do want to talk a little bit more about it, but we got to take our first break of the show. So let's make sure we're doing that. Jump in with a Toyota. EJ, maybe a little bit more of a lengthy career than a Toyota, but Toyotas do last a long time too. You can get a lot of mileage out of your Toyota. They've got a vehicle for everyone, whether it be the trucks, the SUVs, the sedans. They've got it all, and they've got 17 different models with all-wheel or four-wheel drive available, like the Epic 4Runner. You can use it to go off-road and have some fun, or if it's just for you to, feel a little bit more safer on the roads. And when you're driving your daily commute, they've got 16 different hybrid vehicles to choose from, including the Tundra iForce Max hybrid truck. So they've got that covered in all of their vehicles too. They'll save you a little bit of money on that with more low and zero emission vehicles combined than any other automaker out there. So jump in with Toyota today. Visit your local Front Range Toyota stores, including AutoNation Toyota Arapahoe and Centennial, Corwin Toyota in Boulder, Groove Toyota in Littleton, Mountain States Toyota in Denver, Stevenson Toyota East in Aurora, and Stevenson Toyota West in Lakewood. Again, Toyota, not just the official vehicle of DNVR, but the official vehicle of the Colorado Avalanche too. Toyota, let's go places. And once you got yourself in your Toyota, car payment can be an expensive thing. You got to make sure you're taking care of your money. And this one, especially for the Broncos fans, over at ENT Credit Union. They're the official banking partner of the Denver Broncos, and they've created a Broncos checking account that's built for sports fans. The thing is loaded with the kind of perks that will get any Broncos fan fired up. Things like no surprise fees, no minimum balance requirements, and the money in your Broncos checking account even earns dividends. So it's already a great checking account, but then you layer on all the perks and you end up with a great deal, including with things like 10% off food and gear on game days at Empower Field at Mile High. You can also get a Broncos branded debit card if you want to rep your sports teams. And of course, the chance to win Broncos tickets when you swipe your card. Every 15 swipes even earns you another chance to win. So if you're ready to bank like a Bronco, go to ent.com/DNVR. That's ent.com/DNVR and sign up for Broncos checking today. Of course, ENT Credit Union is insured by NCUA, membership required. Annual percentage yield account requires associated ENT Broncos debit card. Third period, I suppose, is where we're at for the DNVR Avalanche podcast here. EJ is in many ways a bridge of errors, right? Like, ultimately, every sports team is a ship of Theseus at the end of the day. But EJ was the oldest tenured member of the Avalanche when they won the Stanley Cup. He outpaced Strips Gabe by about 4, 5, 6 months, I think. And he took us from, he said it was literally Joe Sacco to a Stanley Cup. And, no offense to Sacco, did a decent job in Boston this year and all of that. But it's incredible to think the number of turnover of names that we've seen in Colorado alone across EJ's career. When he started here, there was an entire different name core than when he ended here.
I believe he was the longest tenured Colorado athlete when they won the Stanley Cup. It was
Helton
I think
would
it
have
was
retired,
him.
so yeah.
Well, I think it was him and Von Miller were tied, and then they had traded Von Miller to the Bills.
To Buffalo.
The Bills?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They had traded Von Miller, and that it was like EJ was last man standing there, and had Landeskog beat by those couple of months because EJ was part of the team that fell apart before they drafted Gabe. Sorry, Erik. So it was like he really was just a true bridge to it. And you mentioned earlier that season he was having that he got hurt where I think he broke his kneecap. That curtailed it was an unbelievable start to the year for him, where you were like, oh my God, Erik Johnson's full potential is finally being realized. And then of course the knee. It was always the knee with that guy. Been fighting the knee stuff ever since the golf cart, when he was young, and that it's still such a what if. Like, if that had not happened, could he have been even better? And I think the answer was definitely yes, because at his size, with his mobility, with his shooting ability, I mean, he was so gifted. And I mentioned the humility for him to accept a lesser role earlier, but yeah, his transition from a do everything player to more of like a rugged defensive defenseman who blocked a lot of shots and laid a lot of hits. Uh, Huge key for them. I mean, the Avs were able to go and Sam Girard and Bowen Byram, a lot of more of these like offensively tilted guys because they just had this rock in EJ on the right side, no less. I mean, Cale Makar, Erik Johnson on your right side for a number of years is a really good place to start with building out your defense. And he was really underrated in that cup run.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's
No, the only thing
go ahead.
I'd add to that, like EJ was the first overall pick, and for people to understand, there's a lot of pressure that comes with that, and I think when you remember he talked about right away, that's how smart he is, and he's smart for a reason, because he's been through it, he's seen the movie before, and you asked him forward or D, right, McKinnon or Makar, and he's like, oh, I'll go for the forward. At the end of the day, I think he puts so much pressure on himself to be an offensive D. You know what I mean? Am I a power play guy? I'm this, I'm that. And I think in St. Louis, he was searching for an identity. And I think when he got to Colorado, with all due respect to, any coaches that had him or whatever it did, from Joe to Patty to Bedsy I think you got to give him credit because he figured out what he was. You know what I mean? Like, it didn't become any more about scoring goals, or it became about being a 25-minute a night defenseman that can dominate the play and block shots and do all that kind of stuff. And I think the best thing is when Makar arrived, right? You know what I mean? Because then it's like, oh, okay, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I am not that guy. You know what I mean? Obviously, he figured it out before that, but I'm saying is you have to know what you are. I think it took him a little bit of a couple years to figure it out. The St. Louis passage, and then he gets to the Avalanche, and I think he figured out what he was. How can I be successful? How can I play the next 15 years here? And I think that's what he did so well. I talk about Lecky all the time about mastering the simplicity of the easy play, right? And it's not that easy to do. It's easier said than done. I think he figured out how to play at a level where he can be most effective for his team, himself, and obviously the fans and the team that employs him. So he was smart about that, but it took him a little bit to figure it out. And once he did, like I said, maybe he's an injury away from maybe winning a Norris. Who knows?
It's worth noting he played through, especially for a defenseman, one of the most volatile times in the league ever. As that position evolved so much over the course of his career. He enters the league a couple of years after the first lockout. He plays through the second lockout of the NHL as we see these intermittent explosions of offense, and you move into this modern game where he had all the tools. He was an unbelievable skater, especially for a guy his size. He had good enough hands that, yeah, he could be an offensive defenseman, and was an offensive defenseman, do-it-all defenseman, really, for years and years in Colorado. And then as the game really started to take that next step into today's modern era of unbelievably talented defensemen, he, like I said, he perfectly bridged the gap for the Avs to get to the Makars of the world, to get to the Devon Taves of the world, where, yeah, his role was reduced on the Avs Cup run team, but they don't make it anywhere near that without him. So he deserves all the credit in the world. I'll put it to you that way. Honestly, in a lot of ways, I think a lot of fans are missing an Erik Johnson archetype player. Obviously, he's not the top pairing defenseman that he was. I'm sure plenty of people, based on our Twitter account, would love to see him get re-signed in Colorado as, whatever role he would end up playing here. But I say this as like, oh, it's the archetype the Avs are missing. Yeah, everyone would love a 6'4" defenseman that skates great and can play both sides of the puck. It's not a hard guy to like.
Yeah, he was a really good goal scoring defenseman too. I mean, he had great shot. He was always hovering around double digits, if not surpassing it in his career up until the end. So The way I figured it out, the way to get him back in Colorado for one more year because of all the righties right now, you're moving Sam Malinsky. Okay, you're moving Sam Malinsky for a third line center
Yeah.
in a package for a third center. It's probably going to take a second round pick or two. Fine, whatever. I don't care about those. And you're signing Matt Grzelcyk to be on your left side on the third pairing. You're welcome. Erik gets his guy. And then Erik Johnson is signed to be the guy that replaces Sam Malinsky in that like right-handed Buffalo lineup. You're welcome.
So
He's
when 66% of the Avs D is injured, he'll be playing second pairing by February when all the Avs are hurt.
I mean,
Got it.
Look, dude, you're already in that world with Keaton Middleton. Who you trusting more, Erik Johnson or Keaton Middleton? Get out of here.
You're muted, E.
Yeah.
Sorry, I love how EJ puts it. Get out of here. Get out of here. Let's get out of here. I love it.
That's right.
I wanted to transition a little bit here and move on to the guy currently on the team that plays that veteran defenseman role is Brent Burns, right? Like, obviously he hasn't been in Colorado for EJ. He doesn't have that history to him in Colorado, but you're looking at the old guy on the veteran side, wily defenseman. Obviously Burns some more offensive acumen than maybe EJ ever had, but we talked about EJ being a guy that played both sides of special teams. Can you do that with the modern Avs? Obviously you have Makar and Taves that are going to be your staple defensemen, but can you deploy someone like a Brent Burns in all situations? Is this a guy you realistically expect to maybe get a few extra minutes out of because you're using him on the power play and the PK?
I would definitely be using him on both units, probably the second unit of each of them. With Brent Burns, what I'm doing is I'm saying Cale Makar on the PK is done.
That would be ideal.
I'm stopping that, and I'm saying save those legs, save those minutes. If that just gets him down to 23 minutes a night, and he's a little fresher and a little bit better, and he's not trying to save something in the tank because he's got to play PK, you're better for that. So I would probably have Brent Burns on my second power play unit, and I will definitely have him there. And I would probably have him on my second PK unit with Josh Manson being on the right side of my top PK unit. But I would try and split those minutes pretty evenly. Like I'm not like married to, you've got to throw these guys out, right? Like and then on the left side, I'm kind of just whatever, Taves, Girard.
Easy to deploy Taves on the first PK unit, I imagine, at least.
Yeah.
You see how chemistry works, but
yeah, I would probably start with Taves and Manson and then go with like Girard Burns. And if they're going to be a 5v5 pairing, they're at least going to be comfortable together. I know that they're not at all a physical pairing, but frankly, physicality isn't super important on the PK. It's a lot more positioning and stick, which is what both of those guys are going to be good at. So,
yeah,
and Brent Burns at 6'5", whatever, like he's going to be able to fight for position. He's going to be a hard guy to move around. So, yeah, I would probably have Brent Burns doing a little bit of both of those units. If you're trying to save some minutes for him as well, it's not hard to put like Sam Girard on your second power play unit instead of Brent Burns. But a big part of Burns' appeal still is what he can do offensively, shooting the puck in particular.
Yep. We did talk a little bit about power play yesterday with J Mike, but I want to pick your brain on it too, AJ. First, we do need to take our second break though, so let's make sure we do that, and then we'll dive in on the current Avs, as we are brought to you by the folks over at Game Time. Go get your tickets the easiest way you can. Download the Game Time app today, and it gives everything back to the fans. It's the hack for unlocking amazing tickets and experiences in just a few taps. It's incredibly easy to use, and the Game Time guarantee means you can Trust it 100%. You'll get authentic tickets on time and at the best price. Plus, fees are always included, so you know exactly what you're paying when it comes to Game Time. Join over 15 million people that use Game Time to get their tickets. You can get pretty much any sporting event in the world with Game Time, but you can also get things like concerts in the theater. So it's more than just that. And the best part is when you sign up with a new account and download the app today and use code DNVR, you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Again, you'll know the total upfront. Fees are included, so you see the actual cost price that you're going to be paying. They use a bunch of different ways to save money, whether it's last-minute tickets, zone deals. You can use the Game Time Picks feature to search for what you want, and it'll only show you the best tickets for the best prices based on your search parameters. So jump in with Game Time today. Take the guesswork out of buying whatever tickets you want, whether it's college football, which is right around the corner. You got regular NFL right around the corner. Soon enough, there'll be Avs and Nuggets games on there too. So jump in with them, download the Game Time app, create that account, and use the DNVR code for $20 off your first purchase. Of course, terms apply, but create that account and use the DNVR code to let them know we sent you over there. Tap, ticket, go. Download the Game Time app today. Once you got your tickets through Game Time, make sure you're also getting to some sporting events that you actually play in with Volo. Volo is Denver's most popular provider of adult social sports leagues. They've got pickup games, they've got tournaments, they've got more, all sorts of sports, soccer, volleyball, pickleball, kickball, basketball, cornhole, even more than that. They're all over the city. You can play pretty much anywhere in Denver. And even if you're not in Denver, if you live in a relatively populated city, they have a Volo chapter that you can be a part of. And it's a great way to meet new people, make friends, and be social, or just a fun way to stay active. You can jump in with Volo today. Players can sign up as a free agent, small group, or full team at any ability level and background. You can use code DNVR10 if you're here in Denver to get $10 off any Volo Denver league. Just go with Volo. All right, final period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast. There are a couple of things I want to ask. I was just asking you about Burns on the power play and the penalty kill. Obviously, Makar is going to be your go-to power play one defenseman. We do see him come off early, but with the addition of Victor Olofsson especially, are we still living in a world where hold on, back up. I'm living in a world where the Avs run 2 power plays because it's more interesting. If they just run power play 1 for a minute 50, then we all know what it looks like and it is what it is. But in a world where the Avs at least try to use a second power play unit, is a better deployment 1-4, or do you still run 2D?
This is such a I don't know what the best answer is, but I feel good about seeing multiple alignments throughout the year, because if this lineup is healthy, which, pretty important if, you really do have to feel like good about, hey, because your top power play unit should be Cale Makar, Nathan MacKinnon, and then
no doubt about those
3 guys.
two, yeah.
like 3 guys, right? Like pick your 3. You can have a good argument about it. For me, day 1, I would probably go Martin Necas, Gabe Landeskog, Victor Olofsson. That's how I would start. And that leaves you with Lehkonen, Nichushkin, Nelson, Ross Colton, if you'd like, or Devon Taves, Brent Burns, Sam Malinsky, Sam Girard. Like, you have options here to go with both alignments, to go 3-2 or 4-1 on both of them if you'd really like to save some minutes for your defensemen and some of that wear and tear. I really feel great that you could justifiably do that, where you're like, you're not putting somebody in a bad position. I think this is the first year that I would be really, really tempted, if I'm Jared Bednar, to go more like a minute 10 with that top unit, and not this minute 40 that we've seen the last couple of years. You have a deeper forward group. Let them play a little bit. Let them get out there. We see the second unit create chances because they are nowhere near as stagnant. They don't settle in to some of the habits.
Yep.
And with the changing in the coaching staff, like, I'm sure the first 15-20 games it'll be fun. It was last year too, where it was like, wow, look at this little bumper play that Nathan MacKinnon's obsessed with that never stopped. It just never went
stopped
away.
working, and he kept trying it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there are there are going to be a lot of situations where it's like play the second unit more, but the personnel this year is going to be so much better than previous years that it's not even a hard decision to do that. Like if you don't want to play Natchez on the top power play unit, you could easily put Nichushkin there, and you have the kind of puck hounds, net front guys, Lehkonen too, like those two guys with Landeskog, great. And then Natchez and Nelson is kind of like your focal points on a second unit, but you have to be willing to use the second unit in order to do that.
All of the points you're making boil down to that, right? There's talent on that second unit this year that cannot just be sitting on the bench for every power play.
Yeah, I mean, you've got with Lehkonen and Nichushkin, you've got a couple of guys with 20-goal seasons. Landeskog and Nelson have 30-goal seasons. Nathan MacKinnon has a freak of the year 50-goal season under his belt, which I still have a hard time believing happened, but is like a reliable 30-goal guy at this point. Like, that's a lot of goals. You're coming off of a defenseman that has a 30-goal year. That's a lot of goals to try to parse out across two units. That should give you confidence to do it. And then you have Victor Olofsson and Ross Colton, two guys who have really good one-timers that situationally could be great fits on the unit. I have him on the top unit because he has one of the better one-timers in the league. And if you have teams selling out for Cale Makar and Nathan MacKinnon, which they should absolutely be doing, that should give Victor Olofsson a lot of opportunity to do what he does best. And you could get a reasonable facsimile of what you got with Mikko Rantanen over there. Nowhere near is going to be nowhere near the player 5v5, but on the power play, you can get a reasonable facsimile.
We already know it's going to be game 40, and Nathan MacKinnon trying to hit that seam pass is going to be driving me insane. But if Olofsson's over there to one time it, it's going to work sometimes.
And that's why they're. Yeah, and that's why I believe, a lot of people will pick them to be Stanley Cup favorites. Why? Because they have options. The Avalanche have options. Look at what the names you're throwing out there, all the combinations you're throwing out there just for the power play. And again, health-wise, right? You got to be healthy, right? We all know that. So, but look at that. And that's why I'm going to keep saying it till I'm blue in the face, like my shirt, my MacKinnon shirt. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to keep saying it. You got to go two power plays. That's just what I think. I think there's more advantages to it. The way the Avalanche are built, the way the Avalanche have assets, and the way the Avalanche can learn from the last playoff, for example, and go from there. I do believe the assets make it where they can. Some guys can't. There's some teams that are, wow, you look down the bench and you're like, who do I put out there? You know what I mean? Like, what am I doing here? So that's not the problem for the Avalanche. They do have assets, and I think it's just a matter of they got to do a better job, for example, than they did in the playoffs at managing those assets on the power play to have better results.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly fair. And, again, we're still 3 weeks out really from training camp where we'll start to see some of that deployment. We'll start to see what has been installed with Hackstall on the bench and all of that. And how different is it going to really be? I can't tell you for sure. I can't imagine they're going to recreate the whole thing given the talent that they have on those power play units, but definitely some different personnel usage should be something on the docket.
Did you even mention, did I maybe I missed it, Ross Colton in there too?
Yeah.
Did we?
Yep.
Oh, we did. Okay. Just want to make sure. He's sometimes the forgotten man in my head, you know what I mean, on when I'm talking about, like, you know what I mean? Like, I tend to forget about him. But he did a bang-up job last year on the power play when he was asked to play there, right? I thought he was standing.
Yep.
He's a good shooter.
The Avs have picked up a lot of good shooters between Olofsson, obviously the other guys they already had, but Colton and Nelson, both high-end quality shooters, I'll say. I won't put it in a specific bracket, but Natchez even, maybe not one to shoot as often, but certainly has the ability to shoot the puck.
Has been a mid-20 goal guy for 3 straight years. Like you're talking about Victor Olofsson and Ross Colton are on your third line to start the year, and both of them have 20-goal seasons in their NHL careers.
Yep.
And
Olofsson appropriately so. Everyone above them has better seasons in goal scoring. So,
Yeah, and like Ross Colton's his 20-goal season was his first year where he got probably overplayed a little bit, and then his shooting percentage was a little, but we're talking 16, 17, 16 goals, and he had 16 goals in 61 games last year. He probably would have had a 20-goal season and he stayed healthy. Like, it's a good lineup. It's a good lineup. I know Yoel Kiviranta had 16 goals. I understand, Eric, but we also know he's not doing that again. So
No,
just get it.
I was gonna say I had 18 with 20 to go, and I got stuck at 18. So it does happen. I'm gonna give him a pass.
True. I mean, he had 3 goals in 35 games.
For 20. I had 0 for 20. Are you kidding me? Oh my Lord! All right, move on.
So close. You would have had it, man. You can't give away those empty netters, man. That's the lesson.
Yeah.
Don't give them
Yeah.
away. Stop being a good teammate.
Give to John Clem, that was like, All right, that was my jinx.
Look, anyway, as we look at the Avs, and I think we all believe there still might be 1 or 2 more moves coming here. Maybe they don't happen until a little bit later into the season or whatever. Still, as currently constructed, it's hard to find a significant hole on paper with this roster. Yeah, sure. Drury has to prove himself as 3C, or the Avs need to go out and get one. Their lineup is not perfect, but as we'll get into maybe tomorrow or certainly next week, nobody in the NHL has a perfect lineup. There are holes for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, you get into we've talked about this for years now, that Dallas's superpower is their forward depth is unbelievable. And you look at it right now and you're like, it's fine.
Yep.
Like, their fourth line of Oscar Back, Radek Faksa, Colin Blackwell better than
that or LOC, Kelly, Drury, or
probably Bardakov?
Probably to start the year, Bardakov, sure.
Yeah. Like, yeah, I would say that because of the unknown of Bardakov, theirs is going to be better. But I don't think it's a big gap. And if Bardakov proves to be a solid player, then it's no gap.
Yep.
Like, they've got Sam Steele and Maverick Bourque right now on their third line. Those are guys that are coming off 25-point seasons.
Maverick Bourque better be the truth, buddy. Yeah.
Yeah, and like Maverick Bourque, young guy, top prospect, has a lot of room to grow in his game. Could blow up and give him the 40 points that Dadonov did last year. But the Avs with Ross Colton and Victor Olofsson have a couple of guys that could easily give you 2020 seasons.
Yep.
And like Colorado's depth this year, it's so much better after the Olofsson and Kiviranta signings, where before that we were all like, this is like right
thin.
Now we've got Nikita Prishchapov and Ivan, and like I can believe in those guys all day, but no, those guys are not going to give you 30-point seasons. Now you're looking at it feeling way better about it. Yeah. So, and there are some PTO guys out there, some PTO options out there, unsigned guys. In the unlikely event that Jack Roslovic becomes an Av, that's another 20-goal guy that you would put at 3C.
Yep.
Like, and then you're feeling really some kind of way about your roster. But the money that he wants, the years that he wants, I just would say it's unlikely for
a PTO guy. You're probably looking at more of a 4C option with Drury at 3C. Yeah. But you never know. I mean, crazier things happen. We saw.
Yeah, I keep saying Luke Glendenning's perfect for that. If that's what you're after, and you're comfortable with the guy that you can push out of your lineup and healthy scratch him, if you're completely healthy, you want to give Bardakov time. Luke Glendening is my favorite.
Yep, we are winding down for the day.
Lee Stempniak. Remember, he went every year.
Can he still skate? Yeah.
Yeah, like what's that guy up to? What's Nate Thompson? Where's that guy?
Sure.
Yeah, no, he's done. I know he's done. I don't know about Stempniak. I don't know if he plays overseas or he's done. I don't know. But it was funny because every year, like every scout in the world had Lee Stempniak on their, go find
Nate Gerby and make the smallest fourth line of all time.
Yeah, shout out Nathan Gerby.
We are headed into
I like it.
overtime here, so make sure you follow the conversation on the DNVR.com. And a quick shout out, if you like us enough to hang around for overtime, maybe consider becoming part of the Supporters Club. It's a way you can help support us here on YouTube. You can become a member. We've got some behind-the-scenes content for members, and the coolest part to me is you get these emojis and you get a badge in chat. So especially for watch-alongs when you're hanging around and you can spam some emojis when the Avs score a goal or when the Avs win, we can get the Dr. Dubs up in the chat. And it's just a cool way to support us. If you have done that, then thank you very much. I know we've seen quite a few over the last couple of days. But also consider becoming a diehard if you're not on the website, so you can go read a bunch of AJ's pieces, his Nature's pieces. Amazing. You got to go read it if you want to impress all your friends and look real smart when it comes to the future of Marty Natchez in Colorado. Go read his piece and you'll know exactly what's up. So jump in with that. A lot of love for the shirts too. When you become a diehard, you get a free t-shirt along with your membership. So great way to jump in and get one of those. I did want to wrap up today with this conversation. Everyone I've talked to over the last couple of days, whether it be EJ, whether it be a ref like Dave Jackson, whether it be the Avs alumni, all put the Avs in the contender category. Is that meaningful to you guys? Because look, we're a bunch of talking heads on a podcast. We can say, hey, we think the Avs are contenders all day long. And maybe they are, maybe they aren't. Does it mean a little bit more when you have current players, ex-players, all-time guys, people in and around the NHL putting the Avs as contenders?
I'm a hater, man. You know that. That's like EJ, he's still in the league. Like, he's actively following everything going on. Like, I don't know how much the other guys are following the entire league and are looking at the league in that light.
Yeah, I think
so that's for me. I really, truly, I'm like, I have no idea how much NHL hockey Peter Forsberg watches. I really don't. And some of these guys are going to be pretty biased. Just based on their
There's
associations
definitely
with the
some
org.
bias in there, no doubt.
Yeah.
I'm not saying there
So,
isn't.
But I do think that it's like we're not hearing any like, well, I think they're at the end of the road. Oh, I think that they've got like one or two more kicks at the can of this. It's basically as long as McKinnon and Makar are going to be around, you've got a shot. And I just think that that's that's reality. And now that they have a Gabe Landeskog healthy, that they're not spending money on players that aren't going to be there for them. No suspensions, no long-term injuries right away out of the gate. Like, I just don't know how you could not view them as one of the top 8 teams in the league. And for me, if you're one of the top 8 teams, you're a contender. That's roughly where I draw my like contender line, because hockey's as unpredictable as it is. But yeah, it's not a bad thing.
I'll leave you with a note. In the history of the Olympics and the NHL, there are only ever 8 players that have won an Olympic gold and a Stanley Cup in the same year. The Avs are likely going to have an Olympic gold medal winner on the team in some way, shape, or form, whether it's the Canadian boys, McKinnon, Makar, and Taves. Maybe it's Nelson with the U.S. Maybe it's Landeskog with Sweden. Maybe Lecky makes the Finnish team.
For Finland, yeah. Pretty good chance.
Right. They've got a number of options for the gold in the Olympics. Would that do it? Let's say Nathan McKinnon wins a gold and a Stanley Cup this year. Does he become number 1 all-time Av until Cale Makar passes him in a couple of years?
Joe did it. 2 Stanley Cups.
Not in the same year, though. Not in the same year.
Oh, yeah, not the same year.
He's got to win the Conn Smythe, too.
If he wins Olympic gold, Stanley Cup, and Conn Smythe in 1 year, that's all you got to do.
And the Hart. And the Art Ross.
Cale Makar can do it.
He could. It would, if Makar wins the Norris again, would not surprise me. So just double the size of your trophy cabinet in 1 year, and you can be the best all-time Av. That's the rules.
Well, that's the standard that Sakic set, so it's
You're
not
not
even like I'm
wrong.
being unreasonable here. Like, you need to see. I think to overtake Sakic, you at least have to like match what
You
Sakic
certainly
did, right?
have to
And
get
he
the second
hasn't done
cup.
that yet.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the second cup. He doesn't have the Conn Smythe, and he doesn't have an Art Ross. So he's got work to do. And at the moment, no Olympic gold. Although we all know that's not really on him.
Yeah. I mean, he'll certainly have, assuming the NHL doesn't screw it up again, he'll certainly have a couple of kicks at that can, even if it doesn't happen in this upcoming one.
I am assuming he finishes with a couple golds.
Yeah, probably. Look, if he earns it, you can't say he didn't put the work in to become the best all-time Av. Put it to you that way.
I mean, that was a bar that, like, when he was drafted, we were like, give us 80% of Sakic's career, and now we're like, just go do it.
Just be as good as him.
Recreate it. Yeah, like you're honestly not so far off from having a similar trophy cabinet there that it's not an unrealistic ask at this point, which is crazy to think. Like, imagine we're sitting here today going, oh, are we ever going to see somebody as good as Cale Makar again? Of course the answer is going to be no. 20 years from now, we might be, some other kid might be skating around, wearing number 9 because he can't wear 8. And it's like,
he's pretty good. Who knows? Maybe it could happen. We'll wrap it up with any final thoughts on EJ, given that, I think we all would love to see him back for another year, maybe as a 7th defenseman in Colorado or something like that. But I don't know. Anything else you guys want to add on it before we wrap up?
No, he's the man.
Keep playing until they kick you out. That's I'm sticking to it. Keep playing them, then you have no regrets. Keep playing.
All right, you heard it first. EJ, go get a job somewhere. We are out of here for today. We appreciate everyone hanging out. Always a good time when we get an interview like EJ. But this has been the DNVR Avalanche Podcast, and we will be back tomorrow.
We all silly like the mayor.